Saying a lot of people are thinking it's going to be in 2021, but my personal opinion is it might slow down because of market pressure outside of crypto that kind of weighs down on the crypto market. So that's why I think we're looking at 2 to 3 years for a $50,000 to $100,000 price range for Bitcoin. But I hope I'm wrong.
Hello and welcome back to AIBC Summit YouTube channel. Now, in this conversation, we'll be taking a look at some of the key talking points that we've seen in the crypto, blockchain and emerging tech space over the past 7 days with one of our key speakers that regularly attends our AIBC Summit events. So joining me now, we have Dave from truthradar.com. Dave, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on today.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Last time we caught up was November in Malta, so it's great to have you joining us on the line from the US at the moment. And I do want to jump in and just take a look at what we've been seeing in the markets. You're a very active trader, especially on social media sites like Twitter. And some of the big talking points that we did see over the recent week was Bloomberg reporting Bitcoin was really flashing the first buy signal since what we saw March in the COVID collapse. And I'd like to take a look at what we're seeing when it comes to Bitcoin resilience and also Bitcoin as a store of value. And I'd like to get your perception of Bitcoin's price at the moment.
I would think, for me personally, I think Bitcoin it's been fairly flat. It's been hovering around 10K up and down over the last few months. So I think from a psychological standpoint, people that are not in Bitcoin right now, I wouldn't say it's bullish yet because of the fact that we haven't broken our all-time high, which was close to 20K. So I would say we've been moving sideways from my perspective. And it kind of just tends to hover between 8, 9, 10K, 11, 12K. It's kind of just sitting right in that area. So I'm not exactly in agreement with that article. However, I am bullish long term, as I always am. I just think there's just been small price movements over the last few months.
That's interesting because Bloomberg actually used their global strength indicator to look at assessing the price and if it was valued as bullish in their opinion. And you're saying that you're not fully bullish yet. You are waiting for some form of indicator. You mentioned an all-time high price. Is that only when you'll view Bitcoin as being in a bullish momentum?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not bullish. I'm saying that for me personally, until we start getting back start talking about 20K and we start moving, I mean, we've been just sitting around 10K for a while. So, I mean, to me, it'll be more bullish when we see more companies coming on board and we see more liquidity, more buying pressure. I don't necessarily agree. I think we're in a sideways market. I guess that's my opinion right now.
Okay, and are there any other projects in the space at the moment that are also, capturing your attention, something that might be of interest to you, or something that you think might hold some more interesting price potential in the short term?
In the short term, I think everybody, Ethereum, the DeFi space is basically the short-term price mover, realistically. So I see that moving a lot more right now than necessarily Bitcoin prices. That's kind of why I tend to not be as bullish right now on the Bitcoin side. However, I do see DeFi it's kind of like, it feels like ICO, the ICO craze is kind of the feeling we get right now. And so that's why you're seeing so many tokens, ERC20 tokens doing well, is they're kind of riding the DeFi wave.
You're right, that's correct. It does feel a lot like 2017. There's been quite a few guests that have come on this channel that have actually mentioned the same thing as you when it comes to DeFi projects. So you've mentioned Bitcoin at the moment is, in your opinion, is trading sideways and it's not particularly bullish as you'd view yet. You're saying DeFi has very strong price potential and is very interesting to watch as well. If we look at Bitcoin from a longer term price perspective, then do you have a long term price that you're able to pinpoint or that you're really expecting to see in the next long term frame?
I think in the next probably 2 to 3 years, we'll probably see Bitcoin anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in the next probably 3 years. That's what I would probably feel comfortable with,
2
essentially, on
years.
Bitcoin. Yeah, 2 to 3
Okay,
years.
wow. Interesting.
Yeah, a lot
And do
of
you think the
people.
sorry, you go ahead.
Saying a lot of people are thinking it's going to be in 2021, but my personal opinion is it might slow down because of market pressure outside of crypto that kind of weighs down on the crypto market. So that's why I think we're looking at 2 to 3 years for a $50,000 to $100,000 price range for Bitcoin. But I hope I'm wrong,
And why do you hope you're wrong?
because it would be great to have a $50,000 Bitcoin price point. People like Pomp, he's stuck to his $100,000 2021 price point. Other people out there have kind of have went with that, but I still kind of think we're a couple of years out.
Okay. So, and earlier on this conversation, you mentioned Ethereum as well as being one of the interesting short-term altcoins to watch. And on the back of Ethereum, we have seen some really, really interesting projects even emerge over the last recent months as well. And I want to get your opinion on Uniswap, because that's definitely been a talking point over the recent weeks. And their DeFi platform and protocol token went live on Ethereum earlier this week. What is your insights on these kind of platforms and their impact that they could have on the market?
So what you're seeing with things like Uniswap, predominantly with Ethereum, is what I see is it's kind of like a backdoor war that's going on between centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges, where you've got TrustSwap now, you've got Uniswap, you've got all these swaps that are basically, they know that they can profit from these decentralized transfers of tokens. And you don't have to sign up and do your whole KYC and all that with your name brand exchanges. So it's kind of like an exchange war between the DeFi and the decentralized token swapping and the centralized exchanges. So I think you're going to see a lot of centralized exchanges try to compete with exchanges like Uniswap. But the downside of Uniswap, like for example today, Uniswap basically shut Ethereum down. Like it's like I've been using Uniswap today, or trying to use it today, and it basically clogs up the network. It's kind of like CryptoKitties back in the day, where CryptoKitties shut down Ethereum. It's the same thing going on today and yesterday with Uniswap. So because Ethereum struggles with scalability, decentralized applications like Uniswap are a big problem for Ethereum on a scalability type of factor. So let's say 15 other Uniswaps show up tomorrow, right? And they're doing the same kind of volume as Uniswap is. It's going to be a big problem for the network, and I don't think they have an answer for it yet, to be honest.
And the impact this will have on the Ethereum network when it comes to Hive traffic, when it comes to projects like Uniswap, as you've mentioned, is it a slowdown in transaction time? Is it going to be potentially crashings of systems? How will this actually kind of reappear?
So, for example, Uniswap, basically they put out their token, and for any users that used Uniswap up until September 1st, I was one of them. There's lots of them out there. They airdropped 400 Uni tokens to the holders, right? To anyone that's been using Uniswap. So everybody and their brother went onto the network and is trying to exchange their Uniswap tokens, and then Binance listed it, and so all of these different factors basically crashed. It's crashing the ability. It's making it to where it takes hours, dozens of hours potentially, to do a transfer, or spending $15, $20, $30 in transfer fees in order to transfer tokens. So it's making it to where the miners are making a lot of money on Ethereum, but anybody that's trying to trade, you're kind of stuck right now. You're paying all kinds of fees, and you're paying 10 times the fees that you would normally pay. So it's a really big problem, and nobody's addressing it on how to fix it, if they can fix it.
And this is a good point, and as well when it comes to Ethereum upgrades, it has been something where we do know that out of a majority of projects, Ethereum does tend to prolong the expectation date. Is that something that you're expecting, that actually this can't be fixed in the short-term time frame? The DeFi space is growing exponentially, and Ethereum potentially can't keep up. Is that a concern that you have?
Yeah, I think what you have with Ethereum is they're underdeveloped and they're overperforming essentially. So there's lots of really great tokens out there. I mean, you've got tokens like DIA, and you've got Oracle networks out there like Chainlink. There's really good. There's a lot of good building happening on Ethereum. The problem is the network cannot sustain the growth that DeFi wants to do. It's just not. They don't match, and so it goes back to the framework of Ethereum. Ethereum 2.0 is not solving this. Like, it was supposed to launch in June. Now they say December. And I personally don't believe it will solve the scalability issue. I think it's going to take a software solution that is not currently sitting on the Ethereum network, an external software solution to solve the Ethereum problem. It's almost like a layer 2 solution on top of Ethereum. So that way all these tokens and DeFi projects can actually transact without spending $30 to send a token to another address. It's going to take something outside of the network. And I think the Ethereum devs all know that. They just don't want to put it out because it doesn't really, it's almost positive for Ethereum to be slow and expensive as long as DeFi is growing and as long as the network is growing. You know what I mean? But they're not fixing it. They're not fixing the problem. So that's kind of what people like me that are dealing with it on the trading side are frustrated, because it's virtually impossible to use it as a trader, to use Ethereum, because it takes hours and it costs a lot of money. So it only works if you're a developer of a project and you have lots of money to pay high gas fees and to send large sums of Ethereum. If you're that guy, then you're doing really well.
Yeah, and you mentioned there, you said a phrase which was really interesting, which is that it's underdeveloped and overperforming, and I think that is something where we have to credit Ethereum and the huge developments it's made. It's really contributed massively to this industry, and we just hope that they be able to perform in the way necessary moving forward, just to make sure the space going into the next 5 to 10 years can really maximize and leverage its full potential. And on the topic of kind of overperforming, I do want to ask you about Kraken, because this has also been a very big talking point. And I woke up to some notifications on my phone of the news. It's now the first SPDI bank in Wyoming. So it'll be a newly chartered bank. Jesse Powell even tweeted out that he didn't expect to see a banking license on the card when he started in the space 9 years ago. I do want to get your insights on this news and this as a talking point when it comes to cryptocurrency exchanges and the banking license being obtained. Is this something within this decentralized world that we are seeing? How did you view this news?
As primarily a Bitcoin, I'm not a maximalist, but I'm a fairly, I don't know, a Bitcoin realist. Like I feel like with the Kraken news, I saw his tweet where he says that I didn't expect this 9 years ago that we would be a bank. That was like his tweet, I think yesterday or whatever. So to me, I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, as a Bitcoin company whose advocacy for Bitcoin as a replacement for the legacy banking system, you just became a bank. So that my reaction is exactly what his tweet was. But I think he meant it in a positive way, but I took it in a different way of just, I feel like we're recreating banking. We're just tokenizing it. So I'm not a really big fan of Bitcoin companies becoming banks, but what I am a fan of is regulation. So I am a huge fan of regulation. So I think, like in Wyoming, for example, like, I may not be a huge fan of a Bitcoin bank. I am a fan of normal people in Wyoming or any state having more access to Bitcoin. I'm a proponent of that, but I just don't think, because once you start a bank up, all they're going to do is essentially they're basically going to do a copy and paste of banking and slap it on a network, whether it be Ethereum or whatever else. They're going to copy and paste how banks operate, and they're going to give us exactly the reason why we wanted Bitcoin in the first place, and they're going to replicate the old system. So that, as a Bitcoin guy, that I'm not happy about that, essentially.
And it's very interesting to get your perspective and your insights as well, because I think there is two different frames when it comes to this. There's two different ways to look at it. There is the regulatory standpoint and the fact that it might hinder any growth that we see from the decentralized aspect of this. But then we also have the discussion point of it actually being that we are still very early on in the market, and actually for the market to mature, this kind of news might welcome more people into the space. So it is a really interesting one, and I think your perspective is felt by a lot of people in the Bitcoin community, absolutely. So it's really interesting to get your insights, Dave.
Yeah, I think it's just more philosophical, It's like what you're saying is the practical side. Obviously advertising as a Bitcoin bank to somebody that doesn't know anything about Bitcoin is like it's a positive branding opportunity. It's kind of like the Hong Kong buses. You saw the double-decker buses in Hong Kong that have Bitcoin stamped on the side of them. That's a bonus. But the moral of the story is, what do we want Bitcoin and crypto to be 10 years from now? That's really the question, and we're kind of building that right now, whatever that answer is.
Building it, buying it, we're just getting involved. But it's always amazing to get your insights and hear from you and your perspective of the industry and the developments that we're seeing. So thank you so much for your time, and we do hope that we'll see you at one of our summits physically in person in the coming months as well. Thank you so much for your insights today, Dave.
Thank you very much.